welcome back to Michael Reads. I'm just setting things up, so if you could please give me a thumbs up in the comment section just to let me know that the sound is coming through nice, loud and clear. And I would greatly appreciate that. Greetings to all of you, seekers of wisdom and builders of wealth. Welcome back after a period of time where I had a leave of absence due to situations out of my control. But this is where a space where ancient knowledge meets modern ambition. But before we begin tonight, I just want to take a moment to say thank you to everyone who has returned to the channel and continued to show support during my absence. I mean, over the past few weeks, I've been dealing with some ill health, and while I'm not quite back to 100% yet, I'm feeling stronger, more positive, and more determined to keep moving forward. One thing I've learned is that whenever you commit to something meaningful, whenever you decide that you're going to be consistent, disciplined, and focused on a goal, life has a funny way of testing that commitment. Obstacles appear, challenges arise, plans get disrupted. It's almost as if life asks, do you really mean what you said? Are you truly committed, or were those just words? Success is rarely built in a single day. It is built through small actions repeated consistently over time. And if you are a watcher of my videos, you know I repeat that regularly. It's built through small actions repeated consistently over time. It is built by showing up when it is easy, but even more importantly, by showing up when it's difficult. So tonight, I'm here. I'm not perfect, not at full strength, but present, focused, and I am committed, because consistency isn't about never missing a step. It's about getting back on the path every time life knocks you off course. I'm super excited to continue learning alongside you, sharing the lessons I discover, and growing this community one chapter, one conversation, and one lesson at a time. And as well, I would like to say thank you to all of you. We have just hit 50 subscribers. That is amazing. I never thought that me sharing my habit with all of you guys would ever get me this far. But wow, I am truly grateful, and I appreciate you, and I hope and I pray for success for each and every one of you, and for all those people who you share these videos with. Now, let's continue together on this journey to see what wisdom awaits us in Babylon tonight. Tonight we progress to the richest man in Babylon with chapter 8, the Camel Trader of Babylon. This chapter tells the story of a man named Dabasir, a camel trader whose life became a powerful example of what can happen when poor financial decisions are allowed to control your future. Unlike many of the prosperous men we have met throughout Babylon, Dabasir did not begin as a success story. He experienced failure, debt, embarrassment, and hardship. Yet it is precisely because of these struggles that his story remains one of the most relatable and inspiring lessons in the entire book. Excuse me. As we listen together, pay close attention to the transformation that takes place within him. This chapter is not simply about money. It is about personal responsibility, self-respect, discipline, and the determination required to reclaim control over one's circumstances. For anyone who has ever felt trapped by debt, overwhelmed by financial pressure, or discouraged by past mistakes, the wisdom contained in this chapter offers hope and a practical path forward. Before we begin, I have one little small favor to ask. If you're someone who believes that knowledge can change a life, then help me place these timeless lessons into the hands of more people. Subscribe to Michael Reads, like the stream, and share it with one person who deserves to hear today's message. Every share keeps ancient wisdom alive, and every new listener strengthens this growing community of readers, of which we are 50 strong, thinkers and future wealth builders. Now settle in, open your mind, and let us return to the ancient city of Babylon. The Camel Trader of Babylon. The hungrier someone becomes, the cleaner their mind works. Also, the more sensitive they become to the smell of food. Turkad, the son of Azur, certainly thought so. For 2 whole days he hadn't tasted food except for 2 small figs he stole from over the wall of a garden. He couldn't grab another one before the angry woman rushed out and chased him down the street. Her shrill cries were still ringing in his ears as he walked through the marketplace. They helped him to restrain his restless fingers from snatching the tempting fruits from the baskets of the market women. He had never realized before how much food was brought to the markets of Babylon and how good it smelled. Leaving the market, he walked across to the inn and paced back and forth in front of the eating house. Maybe he might meet someone he knows here, someone he could borrow a copper coin from that would get him a smile from the unfriendly innkeeper, and with it a liberal helping of food. While he daydreamed, he unexpectedly found himself face to face with the one man he wanted to avoid the most, the tall, bony figure of Dabasir, the camel trader. Of all the friends and others who he had borrowed small amounts from, Dabasir made him feel the most uncomfortable because of his failure to keep his promises to repay on time. Dabasir's face lit up at the sight of him. "Ha! It's Turkad, just the person I have been looking for so he can repay the 2 pieces of copper that I lent him a moon ago. Also, the piece of silver that I lent him before that. I am glad I saw you. I can make good use of the coins this very day. What do you say, boy? What do you say?" Turkad stuttered and his face flushed. He didn't have enough food in his empty stomach to give him strength to argue with the outspoken Dabasir. I am sorry, very sorry," he mumbled weakly. "But today I don't have the copper or the silver to repay you." "Then get it," Dabasir insisted. "Surely you can get hold of a few coppers and a piece of silver to repay the generosity of an old friend of your father's who helped you when you were in need. It is because ill fortune pursues me that I cannot pay today." "Ill fortune? Would you blame the gods for your own weakness?" "Ill fortune follows every man who thinks of borrowing more than of repaying. Come with me, boy. while I eat. I am hungry and I would like to tell you a tale. Turk had flinched from the brutal frankness of Dabasir, but at least here was an invitation to enter the covered doorway of the eating house. Dabasir pushed him to a far corner of the room where they sat on small rugs. When Kauskor, the owner, appeared smiling, Dabasir addressed him with the usual freedom. "Fat lizard of the desert, bring me a leg of goat, very brown and juicy, and bread and all of the vegetables because I am hungry and want a lot of food. Do not forget my friend here. Bring him a jug of water. Have it cooled because the day is hot." Turkad's heart sank. Does he have to sit here and drink water while he watches this man devour an entire goat leg? He said nothing. He thought of nothing he could say. Excuse me. Dabasir, however, knew no such thing as silence. Smiling and waving his hand good-naturedly to the other customers, all of whom knew him, he continued, "I heard from a trader, just returning from Urfa, of a certain rich man who has a piece of stone cut so thin that you can look through it. He put it in the window of his house to keep out the rain. It is yellow," the traveler says, "and he was allowed to look through it, and all the outside world looked strange and not like it really is." What would you think about that, Turkad? Do you think the world could look like a different color than what it is? "I think so," responded the boy, much more interested in the fat leg of goat placed before Dabasir. "Well, I know it's true because I myself have seen the world in all different colors from what it really is, and the tale I am about to tell relates to how I came to see it in the right color once again." "Dabasir is going to tell a tale," whispered a neighboring diner to the neighbor, and dragged his rug closer. Other diners brought their food and crowded in a semicircle. They crunched noisily in the ears of Turkad and brushed him with their meaty bones. He was the only one who didn't have food. Dabasir did not offer to share with him or even point to a small corner of the hard bread that had broken off and had fallen from the platter onto the floor. "The story that I am about to tell," began Dabasir, pausing to bite a good chunk of goat leg, "relates to my early life and how I came to be a camel trader. Did anyone know that I was once a slave in Syria?" A murmur of surprise ran through the audience that Dabasir listened to with satisfaction. "When I was a young man," continued Dabasir, "after another vicious onslaught on the goat leg, I learned the trade of my father, saddle making. I worked with him in his shop and found a wife. Being young, without great skills, I only earned a little bit, just enough to support my excellent wife in a modest way. I craved good things that I could not afford. Soon I found that the shopkeepers would trust me to pay later even though I couldn't pay at the time. Being young and without experience, I didn't know that someone who spends more than he earns is sowing the winds of needless self-indulgence, from which he is sure to reap the whirlwinds of trouble and humiliation. So I indulged my desires for fine cloths and bought luxuries for my good wife and our home beyond our means. I paid as I could, and for a while everything went well. But in time I discovered I could not use my earnings to live on and to pay my debts. Creditors began to harass me to pay for my extravagant purchases, and my life became miserable. I borrowed from my friends but I couldn't repay them either. Things went from bad to worse. My wife returned to her father, and I decided to leave Babylon and look for another city where a young man could have a better chance to make it. For 2 years, I had a restless and unsuccessful life working for a caravan trader. Then I joined a bunch of likable robbers who scoured the desert for unarmed caravans. These deeds were unworthy of the son of my father, but I was seeing the world through a colored stone, and I did not realize what low level I had fallen to. We had success on our first raid, capturing a rich haul of gold and silks and valuable merchandise. We took this loot to Guinea and squandered it. The second time we weren't so fortunate. Just after we made our capture, we were attacked by the spearmen of a native chief who the caravans paid for their protection. Our 2 leaders were killed, and the rest of us were taken to Damascus, where we were stripped of our clothing and sold as slaves. I was purchased for 2 pieces of silver by a Syrian desert chief. With my hair shaved and only a loincloth to wear, I was not so different from the other slaves. Being a reckless youth, I thought it was just another adventure until my new master took me in front of his 4 wives and told them they could have me for a eunuch. Then I indeed realized the hopelessness of my situation. These desert men were fierce and warlike. I was just a subject to their will without weapons or means of escape. I was fearful as I stood there with the 4 women looking me up and down. I wondered if I could expect pity from them. Sarah, the first wife, was older than the others. Her face was expressionless as she looked at me. I turned from her with little consolation. The next was a sneering beauty who looked at me as indifferently as if I had been a worm. The 2 younger ones whispered and laughed like it was all an exciting joke. It seemed like a lifetime went by as I stood waiting for someone to speak. Each woman appeared willing to let the others make the decision. Finally, Sarah spoke up in a cold voice. I have plenty of eunuchs, but we have very few camel tenders, and the ones we do have are worthless. Today, I wanted to visit my mother who is sick with a fever, and there is no slave that I would trust to lead my camel. Ask the slave if he can lead a camel. My master asked me, "What do you know about camels?" Trying to conceal my eagerness, I replied, "I can make them kneel. I can load them. I can lead them on long trips without tiring. If need be, I can repair their saddle." "The slave speaks like he knows enough," observed my master. "Sarah, if you so desire, take this man for your camel tender." So I was turned over to Sarah, and that very day I led her camels on a long journey to see her sick mother. I took the opportunity to thank her for intervening and also to tell her that I wasn't a slave by birth, but the son of a free man, an honorable saddle maker of Babylon. I also told her a lot of my story. Her comments were unsettling to me, and I pondered what she said afterwards. "How can you call yourself a free man when your weakness has brought you to this? If a man has the soul of a slave in himself, won't he become one no matter how he was born? Just like how water seeks its level. If a man has the soul of a free man within him, won't he become respected and honored in his own city in spite of his misfortune? For over a year I was a slave and lived with the other slaves, but I was determined not to become one of them. One day Sarah asked me, in the evening, when the other slaves can mingle and enjoy the company of each other, why do you sit in your tent alone? I responded, I am pondering what you said to me. I think if I have the soul of a slave, then I cannot join them, so I must sit apart. I too must sit apart, she confided. My dowry was large, and my lord married me because of me. But he doesn't desire me. What every woman longs for is to be desired. Because of this, and because I am barren and I have neither a son nor a daughter, I must sit apart. If I were a man, I would rather die than be a slave like you, but the conventions of our tribe make slaves of women. What do you think of me after all this time? I asked her suddenly. Do I have the soul of a man or the soul of a slave? Do you have the desire to repay the just debts you owe in Babylon? She asked. Yes, I have the desire, but I don't see how I would do it. If you happily let the years slip by and make no effort to repay, then you have the soul of a slave. No man is otherwise who cannot respect himself, and no man can respect himself who doesn't repay his honest debts. But what can I do while I am a slave in Syria? Stay a slave in Syria, you weakling. I am not a weakling, I denied fiercely. Then prove it. How? Doesn't your great king fight his enemies in every way he can and with every force he has? Your debts are your enemies. They ran you out of Babylon. You left them alone, and they grew too strong for you. If you had fought them as a man, you could have conquered them and be an honored member of the town. But you didn't have the soul to fight them, and behold, your pride has gone down until you were a slave in Syria. I thought a lot about her unkind accusations and many defensive phrases I said to prove I was not a slave at heart, but I wouldn't have the chance to use them. 3 days later, the maid of Sarah took me to her mistress. My mother is very sick again, she said. Saddle the 2 best camels in my husband's herd. Tie on the water skins and saddlebags for a long journey. The maid will give you food from the kitchen tent. I packed the camels, wondering about the quantity of provisions the maid had provided, because her mother lived less than a day's ride away. The maid rode the camel in the back, and I led the camel of the mistress. When we reached her mother's house, it was just dark. Sarah dismissed the maid and said to me, Dabasir, do you have the soul of a free man or the soul of a slave? The soul of a free man, I insisted. Now is your chance to prove it. Your master has drunk deeply and his chiefs are in a stupor. Take these camels and make your escape. Here is a bag of clothes of your master's to disguise you. I will say you stole the camels and ran away while I visited my sick mother. You have the soul of a queen, I told her. I really wish I could lead you to happiness. Happiness, she responded, doesn't await the runaway wife who looks for it in far-away lands among strange people. Go your own way, and may the gods of the desert protect you, because the journey is far and barren of food or water. I didn't need further urging and thanked her warmly and went away into the night. I didn't know this strange country and had only a dim idea of the direction Babylon was in, but went out bravely across the desert towards the hills. One camel I rode and the other I led. All that night I travelled, and all the next day urged on by the knowledge of the terrible fate that awaits slaves who stole their master's property and tried to escape. Late that afternoon I reached a rough country as uninhabitable as the desert. The sharp rocks bruised the feet of my faithful camels, and soon they were picking their way, slowly and painfully, along. I didn't meet men or beasts, and understood why they cursed this inhospitable land. It was the type of journey that from that point only a few men lived to tell the tale. Day after day we plodded along. Food and water gave out. The heat of the sun was merciless. At the end of the 9th day, I slid off the back of my mount with the feeling that I was too weak to ever remount, and I would surely die, lost in this abandoned country. I sat up and looked around me. There was a coolness in the morning air. My camels lay defeated, not far away. Around me was a vast waste of broken country covered with rock and sand and thorny things. No sign of water, nothing to eat for me or my camels. Could this be the peaceful quiet that I face at my end? My mind was clearer than it had ever been before. My body now seemed to have little importance. My parched and bleeding lips, my dry and swollen tongue, my empty stomach, all had lost their supreme agonies of the day before. I looked across into the uninviting distance and once again thought of the question, do I have the soul of a slave or the soul of a free man? Then I realized that if I had the soul of a slave, I should give up, lie down in the desert and die, a fitting end for a runaway slave. But if I had the soul of a free man, what should I do? I would force my way back to Babylon, repay the people who had trusted me, bring happiness to my wife who truly loved me, and bring peace and pride to my parents. Your debts are your enemies that have run you out of Babylon, Sarah had said. Yes, it was true. Why I had refused to stand my ground like a man. Why had I allowed my wife to go back to her father? Then a strange thing happened. The whole world seemed to be a different color, as though I had been looking at it through a colored stone which had been suddenly removed. At last, I saw what was truly valuable in life. Die in the desert? Not me. With a new vision, I saw the things that I must do. First, I would go back to Babylon and face every man who I owed money to. I would tell them that after years of wandering and misfortune, I had come back to pay my debts as fast as the gods would permit me. Next, I will make a home for my wife and become a citizen that my parents should be proud of. My debts were my enemies, but the men I owed were my friends because they had trusted me and believed in me. I staggered weakly to my feet. Hunger didn't matter. Thirst didn't matter. They were just roadblocks on the road to Babylon. The soul of a free man surged within me, and I was going back to conquer my enemies and reward my friends. This new resolve was thrilling. The glazed eyes of my camels brightened at the new note of my husky voice. With great effort, after many attempts, they got on their feet. With pitiful perseverance, they pushed on towards the north, where something within me said we would find Babylon. We found water. We passed into a more fertile country that had grass and fruit. We found the trail to Babylon because the soul of a free man looks at life as a series of problems to be solved and solves them, while the soul of a slave whines, "What can I do when I am just a slave?" How about you, Turkad? Does your empty stomach make your head exceedingly clear? Are you ready to take the road that leads back to self-respect? Can you see the world in its true color? Do you have the desire to pay your honest debts, however many they may be, and once again be a respected man in Babylon? Moisture came to the eyes of the boy. He rose eagerly to his knees. "You have shown me a vision. Already I feel the soul of a free man surge inside of me." "But how did you do when you returned?" questioned an interested listener. "Where determination is, the way can be found," Dabasir replied. "Now I had the determination, so I went out to find a way. First I visited every man I owed and begged for his patience until I could earn money to repay him. Most of them met me gladly. Several reviled me, but others offered to help me. One person gave me the help I needed. It was Mathon, the gold lender. When he learned that I had been a camel tender in Syria, he sent me an old Nebatur, the camel trader, who had just been commissioned by our good king to purchase many herds of good camel for the great expedition. With him I could put my knowledge of camels to good use. Gradually I was able to repay every copper and every piece of silver. Then at last I could hold up my head and feel that I was an honorable man among men." Again Dabasir turned to his food. "Kauskor, you snail," he called loudly to be heard in the kitchen. "The food is cold. Bring me more meat fresh from the roaster. Bring out a very large portion for Turkad as well, the son of my old friend, who is hungry and will eat with me." So the tale of Dabasir, the camel trader of old Babylon, ended. He found his own soul when he realized a great truth, a truth that was known and used by wise men long before his time. It has led men of all ages out of difficulties and into success, and it will continue to do so for those who have the wisdom to understand its magic power. It is for any man to use who reads those lines. Where determination is, the way can be found. Welcome back. The Camel Trader of Babylon is one of the most powerful chapters in the entire book because it demonstrates that wealth begins with a change in mindset long before it appears in a person's purse. The first lesson is that debt steals freedom. Dabasir's troubles began when he developed habits that exceeded his means. He spent beyond what he earned and gradually surrendered control of his future. What began as small obligations eventually became overwhelming burdens. Many people assume debt is simply a financial issue, but this chapter reveals that debt often becomes emotional as well. It creates stress, anxiety, and feelings of helplessness. The story reminds us that every pound borrowed today creates a claim against tomorrow's earnings. The second lesson is that responsibility creates strength. A turning point occurs when Dabasir finally stops blaming circumstances and accepts complete responsibility for his situation. Instead of searching for excuses, he searches for solutions. This principle remains as relevant today as it was in Babylon. Progress begins when we acknowledge where we are and commit ourselves to changing course. The third lesson is that self-respect is earned through action. One of the most memorable moments in this chapter occurs when Dabasir asks himself whether he possesses the soul of a free man or the soul of a slave. This is a question that extends far beyond finances. Do we control our habits, or do our habits control us? Do we honor our commitments, or do we avoid them? Do we confront our challenges, or do we run from them? Dabasir's recovery begins when he decides to live in a manner worthy of his own respect. The fourth lesson is the importance of a plan. Hope alone was not enough. Determination alone was not enough. Dabasir created a specific strategy to repay his debt, support his household, and continue building his future simultaneously. This is one of the greatest financial lessons ever written. A goal without a plan is merely a wish. A written plan transforms intention into action. The fifth lesson is persistence. Dabasir's problems were not solved overnight. His debts had accumulated over time, and resolving them required patience and consistency. This chapter teaches us that financial freedom is not usually achieved through dramatic events. It is achieved through repeated wise decisions made day after day, week after week, year after year. Small actions, when consistently repeated, create extraordinary outcomes. And from this chapter we learn debt can imprison the mind as well as the wallet. Financial recovery begins with personal responsibility. Self-respect grows when we honor our commitments. A clear plan creates confidence and direction. Consistency triumphs over quick fixes, and past mistakes do not determine our future successes. And every individual has the power to rebuild their financial life. You have the power to do that. Most importantly, we learn that wealth is not reserved for those who never fail. Wealth is often achieved by those who learn from failure and refuse to remain defeated. Dabasir's story proves that a person's greatest asset is not the gold they possess, but the character they develop. As we close tonight's chapter, I want to leave you with a question. What is one area of your life where taking complete responsibility could change your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every response, and your perspective may inspire somebody else within this community. If today's lesson has brought you value, subscribe to Michael Reads, leave a like, and share the stream with a fellow seeker of wisdom. Remember this: gold flows willingly towards those who demonstrate discipline, purpose, and responsibility. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building the future you deserve. I am Michael, and this is Michael Reads, signing off from these golden walls of Babylon. May your purse grow heavy, your wisdom grow deeper, and your journey towards prosperity continue. Good night, and I look forward to seeing you all on the next one, which should be in a couple of days' time. I look forward to seeing you all then.